How you going? I turned 70 the other day, and just maybe a good idea to open up to other people, males, females, don't really mind, about my life experiences, hear about yours, changes we've been through. Pretty amazing. I might never get anybody to look at this clips. I'm going to try and do them regularly, but they're going to be an exercise in honesty for somebody who's been here for 70 years on the planet, which means probably don't have that much more, who knows. I mean, the other day I got bitten by an ant, well, a few of them, and led to an anaphylactic response and in hospital. You know, crazy. You just don't know when your number's up. It'll be up when it's up. And I believe you just go back home where you came from. So I was born in Perth, Western Australia in 1954, and I have to say, you know, especially the earlier part of my life was particularly difficult. Mum was Holocaust survivor. She and her parents escaped the Nazis regime by the skin of their teeth. The last train out of Prague, last boat out of Italy, landed in Perth. My grandfather threw luggage on the deck, on the harbour decks, and said, "Not moving from here." We intended to go to Sydney. Never heard from the rest of their family. They're all murdered, we think, in what was absolutely dire and terrible circumstance. So my father grew up in Western Australia. He was also Jewish, had to fight to preserve what he believed was his identity, and always fighting. As a young kid, became very good at it and became state champion boxer, state champion wrestler, good at whatever sport he turned his mind to. And I mean, he had a lot of nice traits, but he was difficult as a father, you know, like needed to control, used to whack my brother and myself. Saw some terrible things in my family, like plate being thrown in my brother's face and blood going everywhere and guitar smashed against the wall. And we used to get a hiding, as he called it, for things that I thought were inconsequential. I never hit my kids ever, but that was that way then. Led to me growing up with a number of hang-ups, but yeah, I'm going to go into that a bit more. I'm sure you've got your own stories. A lot of people say that it's just that generation, but led to me having, and I'm going to be brutally honest about this, a lot of mental health issues. So fucking wonder I'm still here. I am still here, but it's a fucking wonder from what I had. So like at about 18, I think I was, and I just felt weird. So I know I used to suffer from depression intermittently as growing up, but I remember a song playing, Ricky Don't Lose That Number by Steely Dan, and I was in my brother's shop in Subiaco in Perth, and I just started feeling weird, like not normal. And then it just went away. And then when I was 20, I had a massive argument with my father, and he whacked me across the face, and I said, "Fuck you, I'm going." Packed my bags and left home. And it was that point then, for whatever reason, that I was absolutely terrified of that prospect, and not for that reason, but for the next 20 years, I struggled with depression, massive amounts of anxiety. I had agoraphobia. I didn't want to leave the house. I was terrified of going on holidays. Anything out of the normal just terrified me. I just didn't feel safe. I never felt safe. And this led to all sorts of problems later on in my marriage, and I'll go into these things as I go on. I've always had a spiritual context for things, even when I was little. I didn't have words for it, but strange things used to happen for me. Like when I was 10, at school, year 5, in Mrs. Fletcher's class. Mrs. Fletcher? A boy was introduced to the rest of the class. His name was Jeff Scott, and he came from a neighbouring town. Now, I'd never laid eyes on Jeff before, ever. And I knew him. It was the strangest thing. I knew Jeff. And my stomach churned and my head whirled, and I didn't know what to do or say to this boy, but he and I became steadfast friends. Now, like 60 years later, we're still friends now. We're not like maybe friends, or I might see him every now and then. No, he and I are close friends. And then when I was 16, at high school, year 11, and we called it 4th year then, another boy at the beginning of the year was brought in to came from another school and to join our class, Peter Birch, and the same sensation. My stomach churned, my head whirled. I knew this person. By this time already I had a bit of a spiritual context of things I was reading up about, stuff like that, but it wasn't that. I just knew this guy. And then more than 55 years later, he and I are still close friends. We jam regularly together with music. Music's a big part of my life. And I've seen him. We've played in bands together, close mates. But the most powerful of all was when I was 18, and I went to my first day at Teachers Training College at Mount Lawley in Perth. There was 300 students in the undercovered area, and these students were just standing around waiting for further instruction. And there I saw a bloke, a young man. Oh man, did I know him. I'd never seen him before. I'd never spoken to him before, but I knew him. He was like my brother. And so by incredible coincidence, the lecturers put all the students together to fill out paperwork, and they put him next to me out of 300 students. Unbelievable. And we laughed a bit, became sort of friends in first year, but then in second year it really consolidated and we did everything together. We used to go to protest demonstrations on the back of his bike and parties and meet each other's friends, and it was a bond that's stronger now than it's ever been, and the honesty and depth of the conversations I have with him is extraordinary. His name's Paul, by the way. I haven't introduced myself. My name is Paul too, Paul Steen. And so it's a deep love. I've had this happen to me maybe 5 times, I think, in my life, where I've recognised somebody. You know, I like to think it was from another time, another place. Reincarnation, yes, likely. I can't think of another alternative. There's a lot of interesting data now, and children remember previous lifetimes, but I must admit I have resonances with that, and always have. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there today. This is the first in an ongoing chapter. It could be that I'm the only one that ever looks at this. That's okay. It's a form of ventilation, maybe some sort of therapy, not sure. I'll probably swear a lot as I do this, play some guitar, maybe churn out a song too, time to time. But I'd love to connect with somebody, people out there, blokes, ladies too, if you want to, about your own lives. And, you know, there's been so much change that's occurred. When I was a little boy, there was no TV. You know, radio was the go. I used to read books. Everybody read books. I think TV was introduced into Perth, I think about 3 or 4 years after I was born. I remember the Anzac Day marching where, you know, soul soldiers had come out, and we used to have a few dishevelled poor old soldiers back in the late 50s, early 60s, and I used to ask Dad, who are they? And they weren't World War II and they weren't World War One. You know, he said, Paul, they're from a war called the Boer War, which was in the early 1900s in Africa. But yeah, I remember the Anzac Day marches and these Second World War. I don't think there's any left really. I'm not sure. But they were young and fit and handsome, and we used to go to the Anzac Day parties with, or Christmas parties they were, with Mum and Dad. And, you know, beautiful ladies and handsome men who, you know, had mateship as their common theme from the war. So, yeah, we'll talk again soon.